Hello, hello, one and all. Welcome to another week of the Atlantic Sim Racing League. It is the multi-class. I was going to say madness, but it isn't quite. It isn't madness. It is fun. Back again for week three in a row. GR86 and GT3 multi-class, 40-minute race. But first, of course, there is the simple matter of qualifying to be done at the moment. It's the GR86 runners out on the course, but it is this week Motorland Oschersleben, the only track in the world to, well, it mainly hosts bike racing, IRL, but it's a track I love, mainly for the fact on one end of the course, the final corner, is known as the Zeppelin curve. Which, if you don't know, Zeppelins were a huge part of German industry about the 1920s and 30s, and then they kind of fell off. And on the other end, you've got McDonald's. There is a corner called McDonald's, and there is a corner called Hotel. Yes, this is the kind of track that Motorsport Oschersleben is. As you can see, just by looking at the actual broadcasters we got here, it's a tight circuit, it's a twisty circuit, it's a narrow circuit too, at just 2.2 miles long. So it's one of the shorter ones in Germany, and one of the shorter ones we'll be using throughout the course of this season. But as I mentioned, GR86 cars on track at the moment. GT3 is yet to come in qualifying, and it is an expanded grid. To run you through the rest of the housekeeping, we have, of course, pretty much everybody from last week returning in this class in what proved a brilliant showdown at Sebring last time. Go and watch the highlights, masterfully put together by Nick, who does all the broadcasting and all the behind the scenes stuff for this league. It's an absolutely mammoth task. I mentioned just then that the GR86 Cup cars were out on track. They of course provided us quite a show at Sebring. Now it is the turn of the GT3 runners. Just to run you then through the qualifying for GR86. You can see on your screen, but Adam Benoit took his second consecutive pole. Got pole at Sebring, now gets pole at Oschersleben. Johnny Ballerman's in second. It's that sort of shorter field spread that we've been seeing, with Tyler Cutting third, James Barrington, Matt Potter, and Tyler Keeping the only man not to set a time thus far in GR86 Cup qualifying. That's how it will stay, of course, because it's the first 10 minutes of possession go to the GR86 cars, and the last 10 minutes of possession go to our GT3 runners, of which there is plenty of returning faces, a couple of new ones, as I understand. But just to run you through the order as it stands, we'll get the first times posted quite shortly, because it is quite a short layout. And actually, what will be really interesting to watch is, because of the nature of this circuit, the lap traffic is getting very interesting, because there's simply just not that space to pass as you might have had at Sebring last week, or Virginia where we were a week earlier. It's going to really be that kind of front and back straight. They're both kind of short of your passing opportunities, or you can look going around the outside as well on some of these corners in the GT3s, which will have the downforce to do it, and they'll have the grip to do it, but it's just, again, that extra level of commitment that you'll need. So watch out for traffic this week, as oh goodness me, that is our resident Lamborghini runner, Renee French, getting it all wrong through that opening chicane, ending up in the barriers. Here, meanwhile, is Matthew Jones, who kind of starred quite a lot last week in the Ford in that kind of turn one carnage, but he fought his way back pretty well, if memory serves. And the number 7 Ford, this growling V8 that I personally love. It's a relatively new GT3 machine. I think it is the newest of the GT3 machines that exist on the sim and in real life, and it's got a lovely sound to it, and it's become a mainstay really of the DTM scene in real life, which does run here, and of course is now the iRacing DTM Championship. Who's on a push lap here is Matt Jones, riding on board with him, coming through the final corner here. This is the Zeppelin curve I mentioned. We've got a couple of GR86 runners still running out on the course. They'll have to, of course, pull into the pits or pull over, because actually that is the Corvette. The Corvette just getting in the way. I think that is a Joshua Durden. Just getting a bit interrupted there. Here is Tristan Richard. looking to make it what would be his, I think, first flying lap or first out lap as he comes to lap the field. We looked through the rest of the field. Matteo Camanzuli was a brilliant sport last week out at Sebring. Had a great showing as well in his debut outing, as I think that's Carl Scott going slightly wide in the McLaren. Indeed it is. There is Camanzuli running the iconic Rex livery that I think we all love. But indeed, with the first lap times starting to enter the board now, and it is Matthew Jones in the Ford who will take the provisional pole position as the first round of laps are completed. Behind him, Sean Perry by 1.3 seconds in the Porsche. Then it is Tristan Richard who's just completed that lap in the. Here is Sean Perry. And the number 11 Porsche, Carl Scott, goes fourth, fastest and last of the runners who have posted a time yet. If we look back at Brian Smith. So we're just waiting for more time to hit the board, really, of course. I think Brian Smith was we saw him quite a lot on the broadcast last week. He was involved in some good battles at Sebring, and I'm sure for him he wanted to get back on the broadcast again, but hopefully higher up the field, as I think Jake Champion goes up into second provisionally with a 1:26.2, but still nobody able to challenge Matthew Jones at the moment. Nico Grinham, I just say that, and then Nico Grinham goes just about a tenth slower. So Nico Grinham in that Golf Corvette looking like quite a feisty competitor. We've got more time screen through. Matteo Camanzuli slotting into fourth, and then just as I say that, Tristan Richard goes better with a 1:25.095. Look at the gap between Grinham and Richard there. It is as close as you can possibly cut it. Just that second spot on the front row. A couple more times coming through now. There is Tristan Richard updating himself as that's Tyler Richard, sorry, coming up in the Aston Martin there. In fact, we have 3 Richards on the grid this weekend, or do we always? Yeah, we do. We have 3. I don't know if that's a timing glitch or not, but we have 3 Richards on the grid. We of course have Tyler and Tristan returning from the first couple of rounds. We had there is Nico Grinham in the Corvette, just trying to get as much as he can out of that machine. I think the Corvette in iRacing does seem to be a rather unfavoured car in the bot standings, but it's great to see we've got a lot of representation here, and I think we have seen that Grinham has got quite a lot of pace in that thing this week so far. Jake Champion, look at that, the times are starting to rapidly forward as the grip increases on this track. Matthew Jones, his first time only good enough for fourth at the moment, because Camanzuli, Sean Perry and Jake Champion have all absolutely blitzed it. Jake Champion there running a 1:24.4 to stand on provisional pole position. Camanzuli, though, will he be able to try and take that position? We do actually have 3 Richards this week, as Tyler Cutting pops in chat there to say. So it is not me seeing double, it is 3 Richards in the field, 2 of which are in a Porsche. In fact, in what is probably a very rare scenario, I think that might be 2 Tyler Richards, the original Tyler Richard according to iRacing, and then the other Tyler Richard, number 2, which we've seen around. There is Joshua Durden, or Jacob Durden, sorry, running 5th at the moment, best of the Corvettes. Renee French, it must be said as well, had that little bit of an off earlier on, and now running solidly in 5th place. So I think you look at the times and they're coming down again. Look at that, Nico Grinham. I told you he was trying to get that time out of his wrangling that car around, and he's done it. 1:23.6 for him. Matthew Jones improves to 5th provisionally. We've only got 2 minutes left in qualifying, so that's gone by very, very quickly indeed. Carl Scott there, running 13th at the moment. Can't her yet to set a time in the Ferrari. Is Mason McDonald there, running a 1:25.8, trying to get into that top 10. Of course, there is no shootout. It is very much a 10-minute qualifying session that is just straight qualifying. Wherever you qualify is where you'll start the race on. Noticeably, Matthew Jones and Joshua Durden still there, improving their own times. Tristan Richard is sort of 4 of the 7, with their friends running 8th in the sole Lamborghini we have in the field at the moment. Should be quite a strong... Sorry, that's my voice. That's my... nearly 2 a.m. in the UK here where I'm commentating from, so that is my voice just being a little bit exhausted. But very much. It's funny for me because I enter it very much what feels like it feels like the night stints at Le Mans when I'm doing this, because I enter this sort of very, for me anyway, I enter this very calm, almost radio voice. And I quite like it actually, it's quite nice. Commentating with a little bit of a hush. Of course that'll fall away once we get past qualifying and into the race. But it's a nice feeling. Here is Sean Perry then, running second with it, trying to get that... well, he's going to have another attempt, I think, after this lap, but he'll have one more go to try and dethrone Nico Grinham. I didn't think we'd be saying Nico Grinham would be on provisional pole. He's already come into the pits. I think he's happy with the time he's set, and why wouldn't he be? He's 3 tenths up on his closest rival in Sean Perry. Just based on the pace we're seeing qualifying, the order's been quite shaken up because Nate Campbell is nowhere to be seen. Of course, he took his victory last week at Sebring, nearly took victory in the opening weekend at Virginia as well. So where he's left, people are picking up the pieces, and Rene French, look at that, on his last chance we have the Lamborghini on the front row by 2 tenths of a second. I didn't quite see that coming, but it is there. Sean Perry is going to come in with third, and he's starting to pull in now. I think the checkered flag is out, so everybody's going to come in and finish their laps. In fact, they possibly have finished their laps, and I've just not noticed. Here then is Kyle Scott. He looks like he's on a push lap, so he's going to come up and try and do all he can to get across that finish line with as best time he can. What can Tristan Richard do? Is going to stay in 8th for now, and Kyle Scott won't improve his... Actually, he will improve his position, I should say. He's going up to 11th on the grid as we look back at one of the Porsches that's now coming in. I believe that is Richard. Yes, indeed it is. Qualifying coming to a close here. We've got a decent field spread of about 2 seconds for the moment, so it should be a pretty competitive race, all things considered. I mean, it always is. The races we've had so far, we've only had 2 of them across the last 2 weeks, but they've both been absolute bangers. So I'm expecting much more the same from this weekend at Motorsport Oschersleben, but a track that really doesn't get much love, I must say, on iRacing. But it's a track that can provide quite brilliant racing simply because of how narrow and short and twisty it is. I believe I haven't... Sorry, my... got to me on the Discord stream, just needing to get back in. I just accidentally clicked off it for a moment. But now we're back. To my knowledge, it is Travis Richard who is the 3rd Richard in the field this weekend. If somebody in chat knows, it'd be greatly appreciated if you could confirm whether or not that is true. But the grid is going. We're going to be going, from what I know, I think we're going straight to a standing start once again. For this week, Motorsport Oschersleben should be a really fun race. Should be a good one to run you through the pole position. It's well, the timing is just waiting for it to be updated for the moment. Still waiting on a few of the cars to grid, but this is going to be the front row. It looks like Matthew Jones might have snuck in there right at the very last second and caught even me out, because he and Nico Grinham are on the front row. In fact, it is, according to timing, Matthew Jones on pole position, so the absence of Nate Campbell, we have the regular suspects all lining up to try and have a stab at victory. We've got Rene French there, third in the Lamborghini. He'll be hoping for a better time of things after that Sebring, where I think he had a couple of incidents, if memory serves. Sean Perry up to fourth. That's a great result for him. Jake Champion, we saw some great pace from that Mercedes. It's the only Mercedes in the field, I think, last week out. Look, exactly what the same. Matteo Camanzulli's another one. I think he had a really strong outing in the Rexy Porsche. Again, looking to see if he can do it once again. Joshua Durden and Tristan Richards. We saw them running up at the front as well in that top 5 last week. Again, looking for more of that. Mason McDonald, by the way, I'll give him the most improved award, qualifying 9th here, looking for a solid second weekend in the series. Tristan Richards rounding out your top 10 in the GT3 class. In the GR86 runners, you can see them all on your screen, but I'll run you through it even so. Adam Benoit on pole for a second consecutive week as he searches for a second consecutive win in the class, alongside Johnny Ballerman's on the front row. Tyler Cutting will slot into third by just 0.1 seconds off pole in the end, as they pace car will take them round for their formation lap. It's my voice is failing me there. Matt Potter in the number 13 entry. James Barrington in completes that row. The back row of the grid is Tyler Keeping and Graham Garber in that class. And to run you through the rest of the GT field, it is Carl Scott 11th, Travis Richards in the Porsche. It's actually in the Porsche will be running 12th. Brian Smith down in 13th, and Carl Maher, who did not set a time, and according to timing, hasn't actually gone to the grid. So we may be one GT3 car down if that timing is incorrect. If that timing is correct, and he hasn't actually started. Someone's just said this is already more exciting than the Montreal hockey game. I know nothing about ice hockey, but you probably know more than me, so I'll agree with you on that. Why not? I mean, it's motorsport. Controversial. Motorsport is more exciting than hockey. More stuff can happen in a race than in a match. Again, I know I'm commentating on a Canadian league, so the hate mail is justified if there is any to be sent over me just for slandering your national sport, guys. I do apologise for that. I think hockey is a good sport, and I think Great Britain actually does have a team going to the World Championship this year, so I shouldn't be slandering a sport that my own country is competing in. But anyway, answers on a postcard if you guys would rather watch hockey or motorsport. The reality is we are coming round the final. Well, actually, no, we're halfway through the lap. Sorry, it's a twisty opening, and that if we think we come round the up part of the lap. Look at that, Matthew Jones very eager to get going. Quite a few weavers just warming up their tyres. Apparently the Montreal hockey game, for those interested in the fortunes of the Montreal hockey team, they're getting creamed, and that's an actual quote. Hit the pace car, says somebody in chat. I don't think you should, because it technically is immortal. I don't think it can actually be damaged, though I've never tried myself. So if anybody does want to, that is your choice. But I wouldn't recommend it, because you'd probably ruin your own race, especially if you're someone like Matthew Jones or Nico Gridham on the front row looking for that win. Remember, we saw that Matthew Jones was involved in that lap 1 pile-up of sorts, but the pace car is in. It is Corvette and Ford set to do battle on the front row, because of course it is. The storylines keep evolving, but a Lamborghini and a Porsche on the second row of the grid. Matthew Jones is going to take the field to green as we get going into monster field here, and we're underway, and it's Matthew Jones who's going to take the lead going into turn 1. Rene French will get the jump on Nico Gridham and slot into second. Jay Champion might have a look. He's got a great start up past Sean Perry, going to get swamped to the outside line by Nico Gridham, who's had a horrible start. He might lose 3 positions there. Is Joshua Durden going side by side with Matteo Camanzulli as well, and it is Jay Champion who's made his way up into third. Sean Perry now challenging the Corvettas. Camanzulli's trying to go around the outside of Joshua Durden, who is now sort of on the outside of this slipstream train. That's another thing you get in this track. The slipstream is so important, and Don Durden does slot in, but he's down into 6th place and he's lost ground, as has Sean Perry. But Nico Grinham, the big loser, out of that start then. It is Matt Jones, who's already wasted no time at all and opening up an entire second on the field ahead of Rene French in the Lamborghini, who's enjoying a much better time of things than at Sebring. Jake Champion in 3rd. Here is your GR86 Cup battle. The top 3 all split underneath the second. It's Adam Benoit ahead of Tyler Cutting at the moment as the GT3 runners storm their way down towards the Zeppelin corner, the final corner on this opening lap. Got a bit of debris being thrown up there, but I can't quite tell who that was by, but it is single file all the way. The slipstream's so important. It's pretty much, it's like Germany's Okayama is what I'd liken this track to. There's Brian Smith just following the field, and it has been confirmed that Kamaha did not take the start as Travis Richard, I should say, back to 14th in his first start in the league. There is Tyler Richard in the Porsche behind him, Tristan Richard. These two seem to find each other on track every single race they compete in. At the moment, it seems to be that everybody's sort of hunkering down, trying to give themselves, trying to find their own way past these cars. But it is getting very single-filey at the moment. I'm sure that we're going to end up with some great battles. And once again, whenever you need action, just look to the GR86 Cup cars. There goes James Barrington up the inside of Matt Potter, who's fallen to the back of the field inside the opening lap. These guys are yet to complete. They've just started their second lap, I should say. And there's already very much it's kind of a race of two kind of, well, it's almost a race of two classes when you look at the speed differentials and the gaps between the top 3 and the rest of the class. Here is Cavanzulli trying to get past Durden, rubbing his tyres in the process. On the inside line, forces Durden wide and will get the place back. Here is Potter and Barrington still fighting and squabbling over 6th in the class, as we look at French from Grinham, who hasn't been able to really get back any of the time that he lost off the start. I'd love a replay, but also I want to stay focused on all of these guys, because I think we're still going to get some great battles by looking at the gaps are lovely and short. And actually what is worth mentioning is Jake Champion. We knew he had great pace from Sebring. It just didn't work out his way back in the Floridian state, but over here in Germany he's enjoying a much better time, because he's already up to 2nd as this Potter-Barrington battle continues on for 6th overall, 6th in class. Mason McDonald has just moved his way up to 7th place, and there's the Porsches that have come together. I think there's some damage on and debris on the track. I don't quite know how that's happened, but that's Matteo Camanzulli, who was running 6th place, and he's already come to blows here on what looks to be lap 3. So goodness me, Matteo Camanzulli in the Rexy livery has gone extinct. That's what happened to his race. I don't know what happened there, but it's opened up a significant gap between the top 5 and the rest of the GT field. I hope that nobody else was involved too badly in that. But for Matteo Camanzulli, who's going to continue running around, I think he was involved with, it looked to be Tyler Richards' Porsche. So I have no idea what happened there, but some kind of strife has hit both of those cars. You can just look at that. I think it's going to be front end damage for Tyler Richards' car, the number 14 Porsche. You can see there is front end damage, because behind it is what a Porsche's front end is supposed to look like, though he's going to keep on running with that damage. So elects not to take to the pits even with the damage. It's going to give him a horrible time with the front end of things. It's going to just really give him a lot of understeer, so he may lose more time. But here then is the battle for 2nd, because while French has been overtaken in the Lamborghini, they're certainly not going to just let this place die. In fact, they're going to have a little look up the inside, but Jake Champion's wise to it. He's looking to become a champion, or at least take a race win. I must say, if that is his genuine surname, it is a very, very cool surname. It must be said. Lovely livery as well on that Mercedes. The only Mercedes we've got another spinner. That is Mason McDonald. Oh no, so there's strife for hitting more than one car. McDonald's going to get away. I wonder whether that was a spin or that was contact. I don't quite know. I can't see any damage on the Ferrari. No, it looks to just be a spin. But considering where he was running, that's a horrible moment. He was running in the top 10. He'd just come off the back of his best ever qualifying run in the league, and now he's got it all to do with 35 minutes remaining. It's a tall order to get back into the points from there. Rene French runs onto the gravel trap. He's going to be staying in the slipstream of the Mercedes behind them. Nico Grinham is now in the clutches of Sean Perry, who's looking to get podiums and make it back-to-back podiums from Sebring, as we ride on board once again with Rene French trying to chase down Jake Champion as Matthew Jones. It's gone perfectly for him so far. He's stormed into a lead of nearly 5 seconds already. This is exactly the lucky break that he needed after the dramas of the opening couple of weeks, where he was involved in that first corner collision at Sebring. Didn't have the best of weekends at Virginia either, but in the absence of Nate Campbell, he is absolutely taking that opportunity, and he's storming away in the number 4, kind of doing what we all knew he was capable of. He took pole position and he's converted that. So he's certainly had the pace that's been displayed in recent weeks. In fact, he's going to come up to the back of the GR86 Cup cars. At the moment, he's going to send it to the inside through the chicane. A little bit of contact almost between him and James Barrington there, as he's now coming up on Matt Potter. So it's Matthew and Matthew, but that time there's no controversial contact at all. It's Tyler Cutting and it is Johnny Ballamans fighting for second here in GR86. And look at that, that's Matteo Camanzuli, who will have to navigate these two. The GT3 runners are closing up. In fact, they're coming past James Barrington, and they'll soon be descending on the rest of the GR86 field. In fact, there is Matt Potter with a battling Rene French and Jake Champion to deal with. Hopefully these guys can get through cleanly and there's no kind of contact. Oh goodness me, French had to have a massive check up there, but a great launch. Perhaps didn't see Barrington or wasn't anticipating that Champion might have to check up. In the end, they've not lost too much time, and they're going to stay on the back bumper of the Mercedes for now. It's the only Lamborghini and the only Mercedes in the field doing battle for second. So it's it's 3 different nationalities and manufacturers represented. It's USA, then Germany, then Italy, as these two continue to try and swabble over second place at the moment. I think this is a really strong run from French at the moment. That's exactly what they're going to need, thanks to just getting it all right and qualifying and kind of putting together a lap that I didn't see coming, really, I must admit. But there we go. Brilliant result from them so far. And as long as they can keep it together and keep it clean and just get a good weekend, it'll be brilliant for their confidence, I'm sure, because Sebring was a difficult pill to swallow for the Lamborghini runner and the Mercedes. And I think Jake Champion kind of had an issue or two from what I can recall, but was effectively found on track in that race as well. Here is Nico Grinham then, hasn't necessarily held on to pole, hasn't necessarily dropped further back end either. So, I say that, but that's the commentator's curse coming into it. Grinham runs wide in the Golf Corvette, and Sean Perry will say thank you very much. It's the easiest move overtake of Sean Perry's career in the Atlantic Sim Racing League, one of the easiest they'll ever get, as French again has a look at Jake Champion, not quite going to be able to make it happen there as they run into the twisty section of both cars, that is. But goodness me, a horrible moment there for Nico Grinham. It goes from bad to worse. They're down to 5th place, but they have got a comfortable gap. They're not, their pace isn't such that they're losing time to everybody in the field. It's Jacob Durden running 2.7 seconds off of them, with an identical gap back to Tristan Richard running in 7th. Carl Scott, it's worth mentioning, and Brian Smith have both moved up. The only two McLarens in the field. They're now running 8th and 9th. So they're on course for a top 10 finish, which would be great for them. Here is Jacob Durden in the, I will say it again, I say it every week, I love that livery. I just love the Canadian flag Corvette livery. It's brilliant. It was of course used in real life at the 24 Hours of Le Mans last year, with Matt Bell, Lars Kern and Ore Vidani, who owns the AW18 in real life and elected to run that livery after getting to Le Mans for the first time. It was a brilliant livery. But here though is 2 more great liveries. It's Rene French and it's Jake Champion, and these two seem glued together for the moment. Half an hour to go. This roaring, thundering, screaming V10 of a Lamborghini. He's going to have a look on the inside. This might be the move, but Champion covers it off. not quite going to be able to make it work there. Again, through the twisty sections, much harder to overtake through here. French is trying to adjust the lines that they're taking though, so potentially, you never know, it could come from anywhere. But really in this kind of second sector where it's all very twisty, it's much harder. And that chicane that leader Matthew Jones is going through right now, we've seen where you can go for it, but it's very difficult. It's got a high degree of difficulty to it because it's kind of a high-speed chicane, a high-speed S, but at the same time the angle is quite shallow. As we look back to Tyler Richard from that contact, as I said, I suggested it might give them front-end damage and steering abilities. It doesn't seem to be affecting them too much in terms of their turn-in, but the pace is certainly not been there since that incident. It's been a great shame for Tyler Richard because they had some great pace at Sebring last week, and we all thought that maybe that pace would be on show again. Sadly, not able to find its way of shining really this weekend. I say weekend, it is a Friday. So technically not quite there yet. Got to wait a few hours for it to take over. If you're over in Canada, over here it is the weekend. It's Saturday morning at 2 AM for me. And I'm loving life. But here is Rene French. Indeed, in chat, Island Grown 777, Jones is gone. Indeed, Matthew Jones is gone. And you have to say, after the strife they've had the last couple of weeks where it's just not gone their way, it's satisfying to see Matthew Jones really show us what he's capable of in that number 7 Ford with a brilliant livery on it, I must say as well. I think a gold and black livery is always going to be quite hard to do badly, it must be said. Over 10 years, I'm just looking it out at the notes I've gone on the field. They've done a few 24-hour races in this time. Currently, it's a current St John's resident. Over 10 years of sim racing experience, and has got some real life stuff with some rallycross or autocross. With second on raw time in what is the PAX Timing Championship. I don't really know too much about autocross, I must admit. We have something in the UK called Time Attack, which is basically the same thing. It's kind of just hill climb, lap timey type stuff. I've watched a few of the events, and it's pretty fun actually. Just kind of just trying to extract as much pace as you can get out of a single car. And they're very different cars to what we see here in the league. Riding on board now with Rene French as we cut to they're still trying to get past the GT3 runners, GR86 runners, I should say, at the moment. But yeah, Matthew Jones, been around the sim space for a decade of experience behind him in various sims, I'm told. Now looking to try and get their first win. And well-deserved win it would be, because again they've checked out 8 seconds the gap at the moment. And just the way they're taking it all in their strides. Now, interestingly enough, I think there might have been some traffic at play here, because while we were watching Matthew Jones, Jake Champions pulled a second out on Rene French. So whether those two will close up again, we'll have to wait and see. Nico Grinham now is still in 5th, still just hanging on to the coattails of Sean Perry in the Porsche. There is the other Corvette of Jacob Durden behind him. So, oh no, that's Rene French. What's happened there? Rene French has pulled over to the side, has got going again. There does not seem to be any visible damage on that car for the moment. But something's happened to Rene French. It's gone awfully wrong as they're squirming through the middle of the chicane there. And now the fight for third has become a three-way tussle. It's Rene French who's managed to hold on to third at the moment from Sean Perry and Nico Grinham. But they all closed up massively. And whether they can... Oh no, that is... I've no idea what happened there, but Rene French is obviously not happy with the car. They've lost a bunch more time on the back straight. I'd suggest that could well be terminal damage, and they're just trying to fight it to the end with Rene French. Such a shame. We said that Jake Champion had pulled it over a second on them out of absolutely nowhere, and something's obviously gone wrong because French is struggling, and I think he's going to pull into the pits in the rear of your shot there. Horrible, horrible moment. Whatever happened to Rene French, I feel like I might have cursed him because I was talking about how they're having such a great week, and it's all gone wrong for the Lamborghini after that couple of incidents at Sebring. It looks to be a bit of a corner being turned. Here, meanwhile, is now what is a battle for a podium. So Nico Grillen back up to 4th overall and chasing down Sean Perry. Looks to have the mid-corner speed, especially on corner entry in that Corvette. It's a pointy car, much more so than the Porsche that loves to just get squirmy on the rears. But doesn't every Porsche love to get squirmy on the road, especially when it's got a flat 6 in it? But it is the Corvette at the moment, the Golf Corvette, trying to get back onto the podium. And Nico Grillen, this will mean a lot for him if he can do it, because of course he's going to struggle to get back onto the lead battle. He's nearly 20 seconds back. And with 23 minutes, there is of course pit stops to come into play yet, but to make up 20 seconds in what is going to be about 10 laps on Matthew Jones, who's been unstoppable all day, is going to be quite the tall order. But a podium for Nico Grillen would be the first podium for a Corvette runner in the league, so that'll be some kind of bragging right. And of course it'll be satisfying for them to get a podium, because we haven't really seen much of what they can do in the last couple of weeks of competition. But they've turned up here, they have absolutely brilliant run so far. And actually, I'd say in the last lap or so, but Grillen kind of has the momentum on Perry at the moment, really, just in the way they are staying super close all through the race so far. And they've got a very comfortable gap. Sorry, I'm yawning. It is 2 a.m. as I mentioned. Over Jacob Durden. I must say, I'm again very, very happy and honoured to be here as the commentator of this league. It's a brilliant league, and I do love it every single time I've done one of these. It's my 3rd broadcast, and I've loved every single second of all of them, because it's every single week. It's a brilliant race. Now that is Tyler Richard, isn't it? And that could be him getting lapped, because you can see by the front end of that Porsche it looks to have been repaired, I think. So that may well be that Porsche has gone into the pits, been repaired as Matthew Jones soars around the outside of one of the Toyota GR86 Cup cars. The lead battle's sort of started to stretch out a little bit, but I think what I can tell us then is that Tyler Richard has fixed up the Porsche and isn't going to be in with a shout really of anything really in terms of results. But good to see us still running to the end of the race. Hopefully 20 minutes to go. You never know. In fact, Tyler Richard is only down in 11th place, where top 10 may well be on. Mason McDonald, who we saw have that spin earlier, has dropped 50 seconds on the field. So I fear that they've pitted either for fresh tyres or for some kind of damage. Am I finding myself very confused, or has Matthew Jones just overtaken Tyler Richard for the 2nd time in about 5 corners? I don't know. Maybe I've misremembered that. Here is Jake Champion. Look at that. You can see the gap behind him on the drone camera. He's got 8 seconds to the good of Sean Perry, running with not a care in the world, because they're not able to close in on Matthew Jones at the moment, but they've got a really nice healthy gap going into the pit stops. It's whether they can close down that 9.1 second gap as it stands on Matthew Jones, but I'd suggest that it's going to be very, very hard to do. Because it's come down by 4 tenths on that lap, but with 20 minutes to go, they're going to have to make a pit stop. And there can be something happening on cold tyres. We know that you can spin it in a GT3. I did it myself at the Nürburgring 24 Hours, my first ever stint of any kind of endurance race. I spent 2 weeks practicing for the event, for my team, Minuntes Motorsports. I joined them through sim racing commentary. Actually, I commentated on a league, and the Minuntes Motorsports is run by the guy that does the commentary. Goodness me, what's happened there on the corner exit? Nico Grillen comes to a standstill, and so I think there's Jacob Durden, who is possibly letting him back past. I think I have no idea what happened there, But something's gone on between the two Corvettes. I think there's brotherhood in that stable, because I think we've just seen whatever happened, Jacob Durden saw fit to let Nico Grinham get back past, and now he's picked up the pace again. That was Carl Scott just running in behind them. So the McLarens have climbed to six. Well, I'm going to have to say it, aren't I? The McLarens are running 6, 7. I know, I didn't think I'd be uttering the word, the forbidden numbers on my third ever broadcast on this league. But 6, 7 has just been said for the McLarens. I don't apologise. But no, here is Sean Perry up into third, running to try and get, I think, what would be a second consecutive podium, if memory serves. But you know, we are getting into the pit stops, and just as I say that, Jacob Durden does indeed come into the pits and will replace their. Well, it might not be a tyre stop. It will likely only be a fuel stop, I think. But just to continue that story of how I spun on cold tyres. Actually, it was twice in Nürburgring in 24 hours. I joined the team up. I'd done 2 weeks of practice, and I was installed because of the time zones. I was the only Brit on my team because they're all Americans and they're all amazing people. But we were doing the way the time slots fell. For them, it was the afternoon when the race started. For me, it was midnight, and I was dealing with a bit of a sore throat and kind of not feeling that brilliant going into the night, so I wasn't able to stay up and watch the start of my first ever 24-hour race with a team. But I got in the car about 8 hours into the race. I did the night stint. I did a double stint. So one of my co-drivers could get some rest, and as Sean Perry and Nico Grinham are fighting over third now on the track, and I think that Grinham might have just gotten past Perry. I'm not quite sure. Carl Scott's been to fifth, so that would be because Jacob Durden has come out in 8th place on the pit stops, 2 seconds ahead of Rene French. Matteo Camanzulli still running around in 10th, so looking for a top 10 finish. And you ride on board with the Porsche of Sean Perry. A great chance to analyse lines and get to know one of the drivers and how they drive. Because if you are thinking if you are in the broadcast, then I think you're joining. Please do. We'd love to have you. We've already got a very big grid, and we're not going to say no to more numbers. So here is Brian Smith running in 6th, and actually the McLarens have climbed in a spot, so I can say the McLarens are now 5th, 6th, which is much nicer to say. But no, just to continue on the Nürburgring 24-hour story, as Grinham and Perry continue their little fight. Basically, I'd been installed in the car for a double stint, which ended up being the sunrise. I started at midnight, and it's a very, very scary stint because, I was just coming into the track as I think that's that is Mason. That's Mason McDonald getting out of the way in the Ferrari from these guys. In fact, there is Rene French closing up on Jacob Durden. I don't think French has made the pit stop, possibly, so that might be for position. I'm not quite sure. Either way, we've got Tristan Richard behind them, so I'm not sure what's happened to Camanzulli, but they are 18 seconds back. I think actually what that might be is that Tristan Richard is ahead of these guys by 13 seconds, so I think possibly that is a pit stop situation. So I got in the car about 8 hours later, which meant I did the double stint, and essentially I was just installed in the car on fresh tyres, on fresh fuel, and it was the first stint was in pure darkness, and the second stint was the morning sunrise, which is beautiful, by the way. But on that first out lap, I knew exactly where the danger zones were, and I still binned it over the Flugplatz corner, which, if you don't know, is a very high speed left-hander that goes sort of over a crest. And the way to take it is you hug the inside curve, but you've got to make sure you don't unsettle the car. On cold tyres, I unsettled the car, ran sideways, and I still have no idea how I managed to save it from smashing it into the barriers and getting a massive tow. But I didn't, and I ended up running a pretty successful race. We finished P28 in our split, which was full GT3, and we are set to contest this time next week, which feels kind of surreal actually, the Majors 24. So yeah, I'm sure many of these drivers will be doing that as well. As Sean Perry, I think we're starting to get properly into the pit stops now. Sean Perry, I can just see, is running second behind Nico Ridham. Here is Tristan Richard, again being scored 24 seconds back from Tyler Richard, which implies that they are a lap ahead of Jacob Durden, or is that timing just updating itself because now it's saying they're 4 seconds ahead? I think it's timing. Look at that, Matteo Camanzuli, bit of screen time for him. There is Jacob Durden and Rene French battling for what I believe is legitimate position. So this is for 8th on track, Lamborghini versus Corvette, and that is how GR86 Cup car traffic gets in the way and can affect the GT3 runners, because very nearly Durden was able to get a run there on French in the Lamborghini, as Tristan Richard also navigates them in good time and in safekeeping as well. To update you at the front, it's very much unlike last week. It is a race which is being kind of decided early, really. Matthew Jones, 11 seconds to the good of Jake Champion, who is 18 seconds to the good of Nico Grinham, who is only a second to the good of Sean Perry. So Grinham finally made it past Perry then. But for now, it's going to take quite something to stop Matthew Jones and Jake Champion taking a top 2 spot, and I guess sending a message of intent to Nathan Campbell, who is not here this week, who was going to be, I'm sure, watching the stream or following it all along and just seeing who his competition will be next week when we return for another Friday night iRacing race. And here is him and Camanzuli, who I think has also pitted just to get rid of that damage that they sustained earlier. We still don't quite know what happened in that collision with Tyler. Well, I presume it was a collision with Tyler Richard, but I'm not sure because I didn't see it actually happen. But for now, it is Brian Smith, by the way, has also pitted. I can just see that now. Carl Scott is up to 5th. Tristan Richard, or Travis Richard. Yeah, it is Tristan Richard, sorry. Into 5th. Yeah, 6th place. So I don't know. There's no way of knowing. Well, no way of knowing who's pitted when, other than simply memorising it, which I'm trying to do to the best of my abilities. But I'll of course miss a couple of them just because I'm not able to keep track of everybody on the timing screens and everything, because I haven't got SDK, which is absolutely fine. I must say the broadcasting is brilliant so far. That's one of the GR86 cars going off, and that is Carl Scott, who spun it on the front on the approach to the front straight. That's round Zeppelin corner. They've spun it. Are they going to get going again, or is there some kind of damage? No, they're towing. Carl Scott's towed it back to the pits. Oh goodness me, that's horrible for the McLaren driver who was running 5th place in GT3. I don't quite know what's happened there, because it didn't look like the damage was bad at all. It looked like it was just a spin. Maybe they've made contact with the barriers that we didn't see, so perhaps there was damage big enough to warrant that. But either way, Carl Scott, McLaren are having a horrible time in terms of their representatives in this race, because Brian Smith has taken their pit stop and is running 9th, and now Carl Scott. A massive shame for him in the WEC McLaren livery, because they were running up in 5th place, and that's going to promote Rene French after all the odds of earlier. We still don't know what happened with them earlier in the race, but they're now up into 5th, having, I believe, served that pit stop, so that could well be legitimate. 30 seconds back from Sean Perry and Nico Grinham, who is still holding on to that podium spot as it stands. And indeed, there is Carl Scott in the pits. Also is the Corvette. Is that? No, that is Brian Smith. That is Brian Smith, and that is Carl Scott. And also coming in is Nico Grinham and Sean Perry. So the battle for 3rd is extending into the pit stops. between those two. Grinham and Perry having run a solid race all day. Here, meanwhile, is Matthew Jones. Before he even thinks about pitting, he's going to have a 14-second gap to Jake Champion and a 1 minute gap back to Rene French. So nothing to worry about for Matthew Jones. It's been an absolutely dominating performance so far, and he's only got 9 minutes to complete the run. And indeed, here comes the race leader, the race dominator, in the Ford Mustang for his pit stop. As out on track, there's Nico Grinham, who's extending that advantage to Sean Perry to about 1.5 seconds. The gap's 3.8 to Jacob Durden, who is going up to fourth, and I think third, possibly Rene French, who might have made that pit stop earlier. I don't quite know yet, but here is the battle between Tristan Richard ahead of them, Sean Perry and Nico Grinham. So I think that might mean that Tristan Richard is running a lap down in 11th. Mason McDonald's running 12th, 4 seconds off. Just going back, you can see him. In the background shot, a massive shame for Mason McDonald, because I thought he might be on for a great race this tonight, but it wasn't to transpire that way. As Rene French moves back up to a podium place, but with Jacob Durden right behind. And I must say that these two must have pit by now with 8 minutes to go. I don't think you can really go this long. At least it wouldn't make sense to, really, when you look at the gaps that are out there as they get past the GR86 Cup car. The question now is, can French hold on for a podium, which would be quite something after the incident they had earlier on. Of course, they were fighting Jake Champion for second. They've now made it back into third, which is where they were at the time of the incident. And now they've got to do quite a lot of defending to do from Jacob Durden, who was running pretty well in that Corvette, I've got to say. We'll have a little look to the inside line. Not quite going to be able to make it happen that time. Tristan Richard being held up by the GR86 machine as they run down towards the chicane, and then it will be down towards McDonald's. And actually Grinham now, I'm looking at it now, they've come up the pits and they've emerged behind Sean Perry's. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but Perry's got back past. Here is Jacob Durden then entering the pit stops for a rather late one, I must say, with 6.5 minutes to go. There's no chance to make up any positions or much time at all, really, once you've exited. So it's very much a commitment to where they are now. They should really, they probably will come out about P10, P11, is my guess. But also, it might not be the case, because the fuel situation for Jacob is going to be very, very advantageous, because they've managed to stay out so long. As we cut back to Nico Grinham and Sean Perry with the lap Tristan Richard in the background. No, in fact, it isn't a lap Tristan Richard in the background. It is an actual unlapped, on the same lap, fighting for the same position, Tristan Richard in the background, because Matteo Camanzulli found himself into 6th place. I'm pretty sure that's because they haven't made the pit stop yet, but it's mandatory. Brian Smith, by the way, I can just see on the timing screens, its timing is scoring them as 23 laps down, so I'm not quite sure what happened there. But commiserations to Brian, because we saw last week how much of a racer he can be, how brilliant he can be. I have no idea what happened, but we'll have to try and figure out why. Here's Tyler Richard, having repaired that Porsche earlier on, running up in 9th spot, which I think is, if I was Tyler, I'd be feeling pretty happy with that, considering everything. Jake Champion now gets past some more traffic. That, in fact, is Adam Benoit, who is holding a 6.5 second lead. So it's nothing like we saw at Sebring in terms of the GR86 runners. But it's still certainly something quite entertaining. As there is Mason McDonald in the 31, trying to close up to the back of Tristan Richard, who's now 11th. I presume that's a pit stop situation going on there. As here is the closest battle in GR86, Tyler cutting up into third place at the moment, trying to hold on from that podium because Tristan Keeping is closing in rapidly on those top three. Here is Jake Champion in that lovely Mercedes livery, it must be said. They will again. I don't know quite what the strategy is for Champion and French. I presume they've made their pit stop. That's what I have to assume because it wouldn't make sense pitting this late into a run. We only have a 40-minute range, so it's essentially the same fuel flow as the iRacing officials in the SimiCube GT series. They'll be riding with Matthew Jones, currently leading by 13 seconds, and I think there'll be a round of applause going his way because it's been I mean, we talk about flawless performances and all that, but this really has been flawless from Matthew Jones on a single foot, on a single gear change, out of line, out of perfection. As Nico Grinham running now 5th, 1.3 seconds back from Sean Perry, so the battle dynamic has changed once again in the fight for 5th. Here is Kyle Scott, who of course had that mysterious little spin down at Zeppelin, and is slowly recovering from that, 20 seconds back to Tyler Richard, but they are in the top 10 at the moment. Here is Jake Champion, 14 seconds back with 3 minutes remaining. So it's going to be about 2 laps, maybe one more after this. But hello, we've got a battle in GR86 to Tristan Keeping, and it is Tyler Cutting, and Keeping's going to go soaring past on the inside up at what looks to be turn 6. A brilliantly swift move carried out like it's nothing from Cutting, but he's going to have to do some solid defending because Cutting is still very much there. To the twisty tight sector 2 they will run as Sean Perry. That gap now sits at 0.6 seconds. This fight for third has really been the one that's encapsulated me all race long, between Nico Grinham in the lovely Golf livery Corvette and the lovely Porsche of Sean Perry. So then before we go, the only thing left for dispute is that battle for 4th place at the moment. It's the half a second between Grinham and Perry at the moment. You're just wondering if we can see a change of position before the races end, or whether Perry will be able to hold on for another really, really solid top 5 finish here in the Atlantic Sim Racing League. Grinham will have the slipstream running down towards the chicane, but it won't be enough necessarily to get the move done. As Adam Benoit. Haven't mentioned the GR86 runners today that much because they haven't provided us with the best action, it must be said, but GT3 is more than made up for that, and I don't think we're going to get Sebring every week in terms of the GR86 runners. But it is Adam Benoit with a commanding 10-second lead over Johnny Ballange, who has in turn a brilliant 20-second lead over Tyler Keeping, or Tristan Keeping, sorry, in the number 311 chassis. So Benoit en route to make it 2 consecutive wins in the series. As we come back, and oh no, that's horrible, no! Oh dear! Nico Grinham into the wall, into the barriers, gets it all wrong. Out of what I think is turn 4, or turn 3 in fact, and oh dear. That's not how he wanted to happen. Somehow he's come away with basically no damage from what I can see, at least cosmetically, has Nico Grinham. So he'll be able to continue on in the Golf Corvette, but with the final lap about to begin, or actually not even the final lap to begin, I think we're going straight to the end of the flag, as that was Mason McDonald. Here is Tyler Cutting. Yes, there goes Tyler Richards up the inside What I want to see though is Matthew Jones, because he's surely on his final lap now, just running up towards, well, through Hotel he goes now. That's another corner name on this track, Hotel. Nothing in terms of nothing in terms of any other elaboration on that name. If I were to name it that, I'd call it Hotel Trivago, in reference to the hotel company who used to dominate meme culture about 2 or 3 years ago. Maybe Hotel Trivago should start looking at sponsorship options for that corner, because why not? Here though is Matthew Jones, and we have said he's struggled. He has struggled all the way through the first couple of weeks in the Atlantic Sim Racing League. But Ford will be going to victory lane, and Matthew Jones will take victory here at Motorsport Arena Oschersleben after a brilliant win, a flawless win. The headlights are flashing and is Jacob Durden, but Matthew Jones will take victory here at Motorsport Arena Oschersleben. He will answer the call after Nate Campbell's absence. Jake Champion, after running a very solid race, it must be said, will come home second, 8 seconds back. Here is Tyler Cutting, who will just end up in fourth. Adam Benoit will take victory in GR86 once again for the second consecutive week. There is Carl Scott, who will come home to round out the top 10 as the GR86 runners are running. There is Tristan Richard, and there is Nico Grinham. It will not be a podium position. He threw it away on the last lap with that bit of damage in the barriers. Such a horrible ending to his race, and such a horrible outing really for Mason McDonald. I feel so sorry that he ended up in that spin, because he had great pace all throughout. But that is it then. Matthew Jones taking it all in. He'll have known, we've all known he had the pace for such a result in this series. There is Graham Garber coming across the line, and there is Adam Benoit, who will finally come across the line to officially confirm his victory in the class. Look at that, by the way. Travis Richard, 7th, even though 5th. Incredibly, Travis Richard on his debut in the series will come home 5th. Matteo Camanzulli scored 6th for the moment. That might be timing errors. I don't know. As well, that is one way of relieving the adrenaline of a 40-minute sprint race from Tyler Richards there in the Porsche. I don't even know if you're allowed to sprint to speed in the pit lane as such, but there is Jake Champion, who will be, I'm sure, analysing how to just get the most out of it. But here is Matthew Jones, and here come the burnouts, as we expected. It is a Ford, it is a V8. It's what you're supposed to do. These tyres are virtual. They don't matter in the real world, but it is all absolutely deserved for Matthew Jones. A brilliant victory. There's so many superlatives I could latch onto it, but really it is a wordless victory, because it was simply pole, led every lap. There is nothing more you can ask for from Matthew Jones. He's proven his capabilities properly this weekend, this Friday night, and he'll remember that one for a long time to come, I'm sure. Sean Perry did actually end up claiming that 3rd place spot, so it's back-to-back podiums for Porsche and for Sean Perry. A driver quite underrated, I must say, in these opening weeks, but he's been super solid so far, and all congratulations to him. Congratulations to Nico Grinham. 4th place is a very respectable result, even if it's not the one he wanted. Of course, Travis Richard, the standout really of the day, once you look past those top 4, for getting 5th place on his debut in the Atlantic Sim Racing League. Matteo Camanzulli ended up being scored 6th. I think that might be a timing glitch. If it isn't, then that's also a brilliant credit to the Rexy car. But for now, my name's been Thomas Groves. You've been watching the Atlantic Sim Racing League, a brilliant race here at Motorsport Arena Oschersleben. We look forward so much to seeing you guys back here this time next week for another outing in the Atlantic Sim Racing League. As always, thank you so much to Nick for broadcasting, organising this, giving me all the documents that I need behind the scenes. He's been absolutely outstanding, an absolute class act. Get the fire emoji in chat to respect that man, because he's done such a brilliant job so far. But no, for now, my name's been Thomas Groves. And this has been the Atlantic Sim Racing League. We thank you very much for watching, and make sure to join this time next week for another round. But for now, take care and goodbye.
Attention to